Right, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Leisure and Community Working Party, Tuesday the 8th of March 2022. Year is going very quickly already. Just to note on item 1 on the agenda that this working party has no delegated authority, and we can only make recommendations to full council, and then urgent actions may be taken by the clerk under Finance Regulation 4.1. And if he does so, he will report at the next council meeting. So on to item number 2, Colin. Apologies for absence, please.
With apologies from Mayor Smith.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Furman did actually text me earlier on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, he has, yes, as well. Sorry, you're right, he has as well, given his apologies at another meeting.
Yeah, lovely, thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest and request for dispensation. Anybody? Councillor Lucarini.
Yeah, declare an interest in 9A, since I'm the Chair of Trustees for the Haverhill History Group. I shall sit it out.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No. Okay, that's great. Item number 4, minutes of the last meeting held on the 9th of November. Would you like to put them on? No, I tell you what, let me take the vote first. I assume you've all read them. Could you have a proposer, please? Councillor Lucarini. Seconder, please. Councillor Margaret Marks. All those in favour, please show. Lovely. Now, sorry, Colin, if you wouldn't mind putting them up on the screen. Right, thank you very much. So this is page 121. Nothing on it, so we're doing minutes arising from these minutes now. So item page 122. I don't know whether Sarah Marsh has. Colin, do you know?
I haven't heard whether she's had the opportunity to discuss that with them, but she will join us later.
Okay. And then the next item, we had that meeting.
Yep.
Last week, that's fine. Lovely, thank you very much. Moving down. How are we with, Michelle's not here, is she? Where are we with the plan for costs for this?
We have some calculations made on the costs for the project, and we've been talking to Councillor Mason in terms of some funding, and I think there's going to be discussion later regarding that.
Item 11 on the agenda. That's great, thank you. Going down to 1, 2, 3.
So the events programme, obviously there's been the meeting that's gone through that in some more detail.
Yes.
So I think Councillor Mason wanted to talk about the Queen's Platinum Jubilee event.
I've lost
in particular.
Sorry, there you are. Councillor Mason, did you want to speak at this point?
No, not at all. I do have something to ask about it. Firstly, I think it's great that the Town Council are working with the Haverhill Show Committee. We're doing the car boot sale in the morning, and then it's the picnic in the park and festivities in the afternoon. I did have a question about how open the Town Council are to other community groups wanting to support other community groups in wanting to do something that is meaningful to them. So, for example, one of my committee members kind of liked the idea that any money raised on the day at the tea tent would go to the planting of a tree in East Town Park. Now, I know the Town Council are doing a canopies and a tree planting thing, but regardless of whether it's the group that I represent or whether it's another group, it could be the Scouts, it could be anybody else, what support can the Town Council possibly give in terms of things like tree planting or anything else that might require, council approval?
Colin, did you want to answer
that? Yeah, well, I think at this stage we're very willing to hear from anyone who wants to get involved. In terms of tree planting, I know the district council's was planting a tree this week, but we're having discussions at district and county level in terms of how Haverhill can take part in the kind of Suffolk Green Canopy, given the idea is to plant a tree for every individual person in Suffolk. It clearly becomes a logistical issue for a town like Haverhill or Lowestoft or Ipswich or Bury St Edmunds for that matter, to where they find the space to plant a tree for each resident within their own parishes. So that's something that's being discussed at county level. So that'll come back. But certainly, anyone who wants to plant a tree, that would be great. I don't think we're precious about retaining any income from if people raise money for good causes, that's fine by us. I don't think we'll mind if there's stalls out there. I did have an approach from Haverhill Scouts and Guides asking how they could get involved, and I've suggested to them that one of the things that we discussed was a kind of VIP tent, if you like, in terms of finding some people who perhaps have some affinity, so it's either the same age as the Queen or took part in doing something for the coronation itself or any other sort of connection, to whether or not that's a sort of, if the Scouts wanted to run that aspect of it, that clearly would take a lot of weight off our shoulders. We'll see whether or not that's the sort of thing they're interested in. They may not be. They might be interested in offering to help you in your tea tent or having their own stall doing something. I think whichever, community groups come forward and suggest ideas. It's not a Haverhill show. It's not a big day out. It's supposed to be a fairly relaxed family picnic type thing. But, more the merrier, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Joe?
Can I just follow up on one thing? I don't know what West Suffolk plans are. I think it would be a great shame if a canopy project involved West Suffolk staff just planting lots of trees. And wherever possible, can we encourage members of the community to be part of that? I don't know much about planting trees. You dig a hole, you stick a tree in there, you stamp it down. Maybe there's more to it than that. But I think it would be lovely if we, wherever possible, we invite community groups to participate in that process. Apart from anything, it's about the community getting an active interest in their local area.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. In that respect, we could actually say, well, Persimmon and Retro have got to plant a load of trees, so we can all relax. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. The whole point of this is supposed to be a community engagement act, that people are planting the trees rather than we simply count an arbitrary number of trees and claim those for ourselves. That's missing the point entirely. So I do agree with you.
And it's worthwhile emphasising the Jubilee event is not a pseudo money earner certainly not for the town council, but other community projects, groups, whatever, want to do that, then that's fine. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's doing things like the Scout group, your group, whatever it might be. Is that all right, Councillor Mason?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So going on then, sorry. I guess we're no further. Well, we've been busy doing other things with information packs and everything.
Other than discussing how the logistics behind it, then, but no, there hasn't been any further thing to report on that.
Excuse me, Chair. Sorry, not wanting to take up lots of your time. Can you scroll back up again? There was a thing about the what's on in Haverhill display boards, and it struck me that now that we have ownership of the cafe on the recreation ground, there are some nice bits of brick wall there that would really support the use of it being used as a display board for the things that are going on in the town. It's high vis, and again, there's lots of people that use a park, and it would have good footfall. And I just wondered whether there was any scope for the placing of a community board on the building itself.
Chair, we're costing up the project for kind of making the kiosk a bit brighter and more cheery. I think that sounds like quite a good idea to investigate. Whilst we're doing it, we can get that costed in at the same time.
I mean, there may be other places around town as well. I mean, Councillor Mason's already mentioned about the North Ward. You know, we did try Chapel Drive, as we know.
Well, it's installed. The North Ward display board has been installed now.
Oh, is it? Where's that gone? Where's that gone then?
It's on Chapel Drive, on the junction of, is it Churchill something or something like that? Sorry, Councillor Mason, can you remember the name of the road it's on the corner of?
I always get mixed up with.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, is it Chaplin's?
Chaplin's Close.
Chaplin's Close.
Yeah, Chaplin's Close.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. So we've I presume we put something on it as well.
I have to be honest to say that I haven't seen it in place yet.
Okay, no, I didn't know about it because I did the notice boards quite recently, put in stuff up. Right. So I didn't know about that one. Sorry, I didn't know otherwise. Okay.
Okay. Yes, what do we have next?
Sorry, 1, 2, 4. Sorry, moving down. Just spoke about the Haverhill show. Yeah,
and we've had some useful dialogue with Haverhill show, so I think we should be fine with the support that they're requesting. Yeah. The historic vehicle rally, I finally heard back after quite a lot of chasing of the organisers. Their kind of organisation did take something of a hit during the pandemic, and they do not feel that they are in a position to run their rally in 2022, but they hope to be back with a bang in 2023.
Okay, good. At least we know now.
And obviously the other events like Big Day Out, Picnic in the Park, etc., we've discussed at the group meeting. So these things are progressing now.
Yeah, that's fine.
The tribute nights, I think it's worth saying that the current plan that we are pursuing and have been discussing with West Suffolk is that event would be shifted to the recreation ground and held basically within an area that's not on the public footway, but is able to be secured. And would take place over a number of days, so we could have a range of different types of music, etc., going on. So we're pulling together the plans and talking to West Suffolk about permission to do that.
Yeah, great.
But that was kind of based on in terms of staff safety, so that the tribute night, even anything after 10 o'clock, even when people are still there are people getting leery, and and when we're trying to close down, it can be quite difficult. Our security people can be quite busy, but if we do it in an area where we've actually fenced off an area, then it becomes much more controlled, and we can remove people from an area and they're not free to return.
Okay, that's the end of the actual minutes, and then it's just the reports which we discussed last time, pages 125 to 130. I don't think we need to go through those.
Okay.
Unless anyone's got any comments at all, I can't see any hands up. Okay. Right. Okay, sorry. Moving on to item number 5, to hear from the Disability Forum on their draft action plan. I don't know who's...
We have Paula and Vicky, supported by Helen, who we have a presentation that I can put up on screen when you're ready for it to go up on screen. And then just let me know when you want to turn the page, so to speak. I've also got the flyer for the Mobiloo that you asked to potentially show. Did you want the up on screen first thing, or did you want to speak first?
Well, shall I introduce the Disability Forum and how it's happened, and then it'll be over to Paula and Vicky to take you through the action plan. I can see them smiling at me, so it's all good. The Disability Forum have met for about 4 occasions in town, and they've been running for about, I would say, 5 to 6 months. It's open to all people with any type of disability to share their views and to find out what they would like to happen to make Haverhill a good place for people disabled people to live in. So over those 4 sessions, we've been taking notes and formed a sort of a draft action plan, which we would like to share with you today. But we have a couple of asks of the town council, or a negotiations position to ask of the town council and this committee, to see if we can get the ball rolling on a couple of the actions. So if you could put is that okay, Paula and Vicky? So if we put the presentation up, it's only 3 slides, so it's nothing to be too daunted about. Go from there.
It's like my erstwhile colleagues talking to himself, I can see.
Right, straight on to the next slide, please. So that is I've missed out. Yeah, so that's our sort of like mission statement, for want of a better one, our sort of the working mission statement at the moment. Then on to the next slide and over to Vicky and Paula.
Sorry, I'm new to all this, so I'm a bit nervous.
Don't worry about it. We're all new to it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, what we're really looking for is better access for disabled people or parents, carers of disabled, to a lot of the free events in town. Yeah, I'm a bit lost, really.
So I put in there, Paula.
Yeah.
Have you look at the next thing. It's so we were looking at. We understand that a quality impact assessment is done on all the events, and town council might find it useful, indeed, beneficial, if they did that assessment in co-production with the forum, all of which have got lived experience of being disabled, and perhaps it will come to slightly different conclusions, or indeed the same conclusions of the way the events are handled. One of the things that came up, Vicky, perhaps this is where you...
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. So it's lovely what you did last year with the green wristbands, but some disabled children, teenagers can't cope with the amount of crowds and the people. So we was wondering whether maybe a slot could be allocated, like a slot in the afternoon, that it's advertised that is, an autistic hour, if you like, so that they can come with their siblings and it be less busy and that they can access it. I mean, I don't know whether it'd work. It may be a trial thing that we'd have to give a go, and some people would, some people wouldn't, but it's just giving them that opportunity to access it that they wouldn't be able to access normally.
The other thing that was raised at the forum was access to disabled loos at free events, and even the use of the splash park. Vicky, you were quite...
So we've got no changing places on the rec. And a disabled toilet is different to a changing place. When you've got to change someone that's in a pad, that you're having to lay on the disabled floor to change them, when actually it's quite easily you can rent them. And whether we trial it and rent them for the big day out or even the Jubilee event, or a couple of days over the summer, so that disabled people that are in pads have got that opportunity to go and get wet and then get changed on the rec.
So we sourced a possible company that do mobile changing rooms, called, I can't remember what it's called now. What's it called?
Moby Lou, was that
Moby.
it?
Yeah,
Moby Lou.
and they can provide that kind of service to the town. So so that's that one. The next one, over to you again, Paula.
We was talking about possibly influencing the developers of the new estates to just ensure that all the clear safe routes to town, drop curbs, and they're obviously going to be putting in play parks and things, and whether there's possibility of adding facilities for disabled children.
And the last one, do you want to do that, Vicky, or shall I?
You can if you want. Yeah, you understand the audit more than me, so.
We've sourced our funding from the People's Health Trust to put maybe a couple of people through training to be able to conduct disability access audit. So it's just to say, once that is completed, would the town council be interested in the results of that audit, and hear what the forum got to say about it? Those bits. So, next slide, please.
Helen, sorry, did you want councillors to give any feedback on this slide before you go on to your next slide?
I think that, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realise there was another slide. Sorry, I saw that.
Yeah, one more slide.
Councillor Mason.
Okay, firstly, thank you for coming along tonight. I have the pleasure of meeting the Disability Forum with Councillor Dave Smith in attendance as well. And it struck me what an important group that was in terms of having a voice and being able to share that voice. And I'm really pleased that you're able to come this evening. Really pleased indeed. Just a couple of things there that I can feel that I can touch upon is that I have had conversations with Persimmon. I'm not the only councillor that has been part of a working group talking with Persimmon. They have made undertakings that on the mugger that they're planning on phase 3A, that there will be a number of disability friendly pieces of equipment in terms of play equipment. So one of the good things from that is there are conversations regarding having play equipment that are more accessible. Some play equipment will still be inaccessible, but there is certainly going to be an effort and a commitment made by Persimmon to try and make sure that that play equipment is provided. That's something that and I'm sure other councillors will want to follow up on and make sure that is brought about. As regards to disability access audit, I'm sure the Town Council will be interested. I'm interested in it as a county councillor, and I've already said to the Disability Forum I'm committed to using my locality budget to fund a number of dropped curbs. For me, Dudley Hill stands out. When you go to the petrol station, for example, there are no drop curbs. You have to actually go onto the road in order to pass that petrol station. And there's a number of other places. And I hope the disability access audit is carried out sooner rather than later, so that we can actually make a head start on that, because it would be good to try and improve that for residents who are in wheelchairs or mobility scooters. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Margaret Marks.
Yes, thank you. If I could just to say, my sister-in-law was severely handicapped, so I have a great deal of experience of working with somebody who's severely handicapped in a town environment, and changing their pads in a toilet is challenging. One of the things that would be really helpful to know is what exactly is the equipment that's needed that would be useful to most of the disabled people you have, because I guess there must be a multiple different requirement depending on, I mean, Susan had an amputated leg in the end, so obviously she couldn't stand anymore. So even having a stand aid was not helpful. But I know that the drop down platform that you have in toilets for children can be made suitable for adults, and they're lower down on the ground, and they can be on movers, so that you can actually put them onto a platform, not on the floor. And I think just listening to laying a disabled person on the floor to change them is heartbreaking, frankly, and that's really bad. But I would prefer that we did something permanent rather than have to rent in something for events, because I find that almost that's making a disabled person different, and I'm not very keen on that. So I would like to know what it is, what could we put in, and what would fit into the toilet, maybe being a structure that would be fairly straightforward, very strong, and able to cope with that might work for a lot of your people and make life easier for them. And my second question is, stand aids for some of the people, because they won't be able to get out of their chair very easily. Worried slightly making sure that the people who use any of those sort of aids, first of all, if we provide them, they do stand the risk of being vandalized, which is always a worry. But if we provided a stand aid for some of those people, the worry slightly that the people who were trying to stand a disabled person using a stand aid would need reassurance that they are competent to do that, because that carries its own risks. So it'd be really helpful if we could, or I could understand a little bit better, please, what exactly it is that would help you, if that's possible. Thank you.
Okay, did you want to come back on that now?
Yeah, can I? I'm dying to. Basically, it would be an up-down bed that you know goes up and down, so you've got that, and also a hoist so that someone could be hoisted on and hoisted off. And with the security side of it, generally it would be a radar key, so they wouldn't be able to get in there unless they've got a radar key.
And isn't there also a standard changing places standard?
Yeah, there is. There's an actual And
so
then
I'm sorry, Paula, can I just ask, when you talk about hoists, of course, you know, we all know they're undignified and they're quite complex to use with all the straps and so on. And that does require quite specialist training to do that. And I would really hate to see an inexperienced person try to hoist up a disabled person, and that would leave me, I'm not sure where we stand with health and safety. Colin would be able to answer that. I think with the rise and fall bed, would it be able to be one that could go flat against the wall and then drop down? And would there be a capability, Colin, do you think, for considering that as a permanent fixture? Because that would be, if it was a rise and fall one, at least that is one group of people that we could accommodate. I do have concerns on the health and safety of the of using a hoist. A stand aid I'm more comfortable with, a hoist I am concerned with.
So I have a meeting tomorrow, as it so happens, with Andy Sampson at the kiosk, and we can take the opportunity to have a look in the accessible toilet there. I don't actually know how large it is in there, to whether it's capable of being turned into a changing room. I'm sure it's something that the West Suffolk are familiar with the concept and will be able to have that discussion. There's also the matters of whether ceilings are strong enough to take hoists if that was used, or as Councillor Mark suggested, a rise and fall bed might be more suitable depending on space. But certainly welcome the involvement of the Disability Forum. Karen Cattle chaired the previous Disability Forum in Haverhill for best part of 20 years, and I worked closely with her on a number of occasions, and with the group who were doing disability access audits back in the kind of early 2000s. And it'd be interested to know how much of that has actually changed. But one thing I would caution is disability access orders, actually, that they're quite onerous. So if you can get a few people to do them and then a few other people who can support them, otherwise it just becomes an almost impossible task. I'd like to think that things are better than they used to be. I'm interested in what Councillor Mason said about Persimmon, etc., as far as installing play parks. The only thing I would say to Councillor Mason, if there are members of the Disability Forum who can be involved, there's a really interesting, that first bullet point, those with lived experience. There is a huge difference between architects and designers who are simply reading out of the building regs, Part M, and everything that's supposed to work for disabled people, and reality. And there's an enormous amount to be gained by including disabled people who, I spent 10 years as Chief Executive of a disability charity, and we, as well as being the people who trained all Suffolk County Council personnel in disability awareness, we carried out disability access audits over the whole of Suffolk, and it was amazing how often that a wheelchair user would point out something that all these highfalutin architects had completely missed out, so they've been stepping backwards and forwards over a step to get to the thing that they're doing the audit of, and just didn't even notice about the access to it wasn't clear. So it's a great opportunity, and it's really brilliant to see a new crop of volunteers coming forward to do this sort of work.
I'll come back to Councillor Mason, and I've got some words of wisdom to partake, if that's the right word.
Just very quickly, I think that's an excellent idea. And tomorrow, on Thursday, I have a meeting with Penny Mills, the planning officer who is overseeing the Persimmon development, and I will request whether Persimmon would be willing to have a working party or have some sort of discussion with the Disability Forum, if they would like that, about the mugger and the play park when before they submit plans for 3A. The 2A park is now, that planning is now being submitted, but they were talking about 3A, and I will certainly ask to see whether we can get that community involvement from the Disability Forum. I think that's an excellent idea, and I'll take that forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I before you come on, Councillor Smith, if I just want to say something, I think all of this is good stuff. Unfortunately, as Councillor Mason alluded to, drop curbs are was a bane of my life when I was a county council as well. Is trying to get them done, and certainly on the Red Rose site, the Great Wolseley Park one, there is a lot of drop curbs all over the place for people to, whether it be driveways into people's houses or whether it's physical drop curbs like crossing the road and everything like that. But I find, obviously I'm not disabled or anything, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but the big problem is when you come off those modern estates and come down the existing estates which were designed for no cars or very little cars, and what you get now, of course, is parking on the pavements, blocking those drop curbs if they exist, which and even simple things like garden hedges growing out over the path, that sort of thing. So there is a lot of work needed doing on that. In terms of the play park, I know on Great Wolseley that's already been discussed about disabled facilities. The major site on the Red Rose site, which will be the back of Green Road, they're already talking about disabled facilities there. But that's a little while off yet, unfortunately. It's not something that's going to happen. Of course, about 25, 30 years ago, we lost a lot of the play parks, which are all on the estates, which would have meant that, even just enabled children wouldn't have to go to halfway across town to get to a play park, which would by now have had decent facilities on them, of course. But I fully support what's all on this slide. I would like to think the town council has been pretty good about most of the things. I understand the thing about the splash pad. Of course, as has been said already, we're not providing facilities for able-bodied children to change, and I know there's been quite a few complaints about them using the toilets and people slipping over on the floor there. But yeah, anything we can do to help anybody, whatever type of disability they've got, is got to be paramount, surely. And I'm going to move on to Councillor Dave Smith.
Thanks. Yeah, you covered quite a bit of actually what I was going to say, but
Sorry about that.
yeah, that's all right. It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
The movement around town is sort of like something that should be simple to sort out. If we can't do the drop curbs, as you said, the overgrown foliage along some of the roads, you would think it'd be an easy thing to get sorted, but sometimes it's just like pulling teeth and you keep banging away. But that should be an easy win, really. We always talk about cycle routes on new estates. Why can't we have a disability route, a wheelchair route, something along those similar lines to that? Because that would surely be a useful thing to have.
Councillor Marks.
You raised quite an important point there about the wet floor in the toilets. Any toilet facility that we have really should not have a risk when the floor is wet of falling, of slipping over. Are we planning to put a non-slip surface in that toilet, particularly now that it is near the pad? But even when it's wet from coming off the wreck, it can be quite treacherous. So when you're looking at that, putting in a floor that will not allow people to slip will be quite important, and I think really for everybody's perspective, well, that will be quite hazardous. And on the comment, John, that we're lucky not to be disabled, I mean, most of you know Valerie Morton. 2 years ago she wasn't disabled and now she's severely disabled, so we all have to bear in mind that it could happen to any of us at any time, so it's in all of our interests to work with this, really.
And I just wanted to add, actually, which may be relevant, and I can't remember without looking it up, at the recent West Suffolk budget, I did notice there was a schedule for refurbishment of toilet facilities in Haverhill. So having a disability access audit well in advance of that should be something that we should be looking towards, and influencing what happens in toilets, whether it's changing facilities we've just been talking about, or any other disabled facilities that need to be incorporated into them. So it's worthwhile bearing that in mind from a disability forum point of view. Thank you. Anybody else on anything else on this slide?
Can I just say that? Yeah, me.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Can I just say that if you wanted to view a change in toilet places, there is actually one in Tesco's.
Yeah.
So that would give you an idea of what would be lovely if it could be a permanent building at the wreck.
Okay.
Pushing it there, but it's.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Paula, for that. Did you want to move on to the next slide then? Okay.
So this is our sort of like draft action plan at the moment. There's not many actions on it, and there's not much meat on the bone at the moment. But it not only talks about the things that we already spoke about, but it's also about sharing with the community what is available. Like Paula was saying, that not everybody is aware of the facilities at Tesco's. To say what is good about the town, what is positive, what places are accessible by wheelchair, and these places should be promoted and that they're celebrated for what they're doing already. But also to develop new activities within Hill which are disabled friendly. Oh, Paula, do you want to say something about the parents and carers of very special children group and the conversations we've been having?
Yeah, it was just something, a Facebook group that I admin, and I just started meeting up every other Tuesday at the Haven Cafe, and we probably have at least 12 parents every week, every other week. We just meet up, and we're all pretty much just there to support each other, but there isn't really anything official. It's just something I did off my own back. There seems to be quite a lot of parents that need that support that don't get it.
Yeah.
And also part of the group, in the conversations with the group, a lot of their children get shipped out of Haverhill.
Yeah.
Education, from Berwick and much further afield than that. And so when they talk about having activities, disabled friendly activities, you're talking shipping them out of Haverhill once again. So Paula and the group have been talking to Activities Unlimited, and we've been having a chat with the zone to see what options there are there to make that more disabled friendly, or even to have it as a day event or something. So it's talk about bringing sort of like resources to Haverhill for the residents of Haverhill as well.
Okay. My obvious thought here is, and obviously, I guess I'll probably speak for everyone at the town council. We'll fully support any action that's been done. I assume at some point there may be requirement for some sort of grant facility from the council, which obviously you can through Colin will be able to apply for. And anything we can help with. I noticed obviously you got there about the People's Health Trust paying for scope to train on the form. As Colin says, sounds to me like you need, Haverhill's a big town. If you're going to get around, even if it's just doing something like disabled access into shops, because we know some shops are virtually impossible to get into, even for able-bodied people sometimes. Whether it's you got to push here or pull there or whatever else. So, is there any comments at all from members on this one at all? On this, Councillor Mason?
Yeah, I'd just like to pass comment on one more thing. As I said before, I have the pleasure of sitting with the Disability Forum, and I think the presentation tonight has been fantastic, so thank you for that. One of the things that came across was how isolated, frustrated, and difficult it is to be a carer of someone with disabilities. And sometimes, I think if I'm phrasing it right, people sometimes just choose not to go out because it's too difficult. And not being someone myself who faces those sorts of physical challenges, it's very hard to imagine how difficult and demoralizing and exhausting it is. So I would very much like to support this group and support the notion of what they're saying, and to encourage the town council to have an undertaking to do whatever we can, no matter how small or how big, to try and make it easier so that people don't choose to stay at home, that they do feel enabled to come out and be part of our community. Thank you.
I think that that penultimate one where it says to share with the community what is available, I think that's very important on that. You're dead right. There's people who will not go out for one reason or another. And because of the time, they don't know what's available to them. And I think that's very important. Okay, anybody else at all? Okay. Was there another slide or not?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to. I've lost you. All moved about. Okay. Trouble with Zoom. Lovely. I appreciate your time coming on. I think so. What would you consider perhaps the next action point from the town council point of view? wait for your audit, or?
One would be, what can we do immediately during this summer?
Yeah.
To make disabled people welcome at 3 events. Whether it'll be a discussion over how people can access, things more easily. For example, I mean, we've been hearing stories about families facing abuse if in lines because they're jumping the queue of like crash events and things like that. So it's about sort of exploring it. We know it's not an easy, there's no easy answer to this, but exploring different ways of doing that. I think that was one of our first asks. Is that right, Paula and Vicky?
Yeah, definitely.
And the other is, I would appreciate, because I've been tasked with the task of writing to the housing developers, just on behalf of the Disability Forum. It'd be handy to have a bit of support with that, just the right person to write to, a few keywords to catch their attention, and then we'll do the rest.
Okay.
Be really useful.
Sure.
Can I just jump in on the point about the 3A park? I'm more than happy if this lady is willing to meet and she wants to go through what would be good on a park, and I'm more than happy to do that if that helps out.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Often it's the not necessarily the planning officer, it's actually often somebody from in our parks department at West Suffolk, who is, in terms of parks I'm talking about now, who actually makes that decision about what type of equipment, or recommends to the developer, and then the developer says, yeah, whatever sort of thing. I think sometimes, I think most developers will just sit back and let somebody else tell them what to do, as long as it's within their budget, which has been mentioned is not necessarily the best thing in the world to have. I've got Councillor Marks and then Councillor Dave Smith.
Just on the point about people being bullied, which is absolutely appalling. When we ran the vaccinator programme, as part of our briefing in the morning, the first thing that we did was walk down any of the lines, and if anybody in the line, and this was part of the briefing programme in the morning, we felt needed additional support, pregnant person standing there, a disabled person, we made that effort to go up and have a word, make sure they were okay, and make sure a lot of them are very independent, they don't want your extra help, but we went up and we had that conversation. And if we felt at all that they were simply didn't want to make a fuss, we were actually bringing them in the back door, as Joe will know. So maybe we can make sure that when we do our briefings for these events, that we do just add that, can we keep an eye out and sensitively, because these people are very proud, they don't want to make a fuss, sensitively and carefully, offer them help and maybe make life a bit easier for them. But I think if we could include it in the briefing, that would probably be quite helpful.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Smith, Dave Smith.
Yeah, one of the things I remember we spoke about at the forum when I went there with Joe was when planning applications go in, often there's lots of people that get consulted, as say the town councils, plant highways, whatever. Disability forums are never seem to be consulted. So is that something do you think we might be able to push to get included? Because it seems that we're not including everybody when we do these consultations. So I think that might be something to push forward.
Yeah, it's certainly something we should be including in the local plan side of things, which you and I are on the working party for. It was interesting because Karen Cattle, of course, used to work for Public Health and Housing in a day job, if you like. So she had a lot of knowledge from that side of things. Including things like, we've all said it at many planning meetings. Sorry, Councillor Dave Roach is here as well. I've just seen him, sorry, down the bottom there. We've all seen it where we all say about, oh, well, how's a wheelchair going to get inside that door? How's it going to get down that footpath? Yes, it might be 900 millimeters wide, but actually, what about the person who might be stood alongside them? We mentioned this about the cycle path earlier on. Colin, did you want to say anything? Is it
No, other than
your officers' ballywhack? I'm thinking, am I saying?
sorry, say again.
Right, so most of it's going to be down to your officers, I'm afraid.
Well, I mean, no, we thank Paula and Vicky and
Yeah.
Helen for attending, and I think it's great. We certainly want to encourage a disability forum. You'll probably annoy us intensely at some point, but good, because actually we need a voice to tell us when we get it wrong. So we'll be really pleased to support you in any way we can.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Thank you. Yeah, I was going to add my thanks as well to all three of you for attending tonight, regardless of whether you're nervous or not. You did really well. Thank you. Okay. Right, you're more than welcome if you're desperate to stay for the rest of the meeting. That's up to you. By all means.
Can I just jump in about the 3-day thing?
Yeah.
It would be really beneficial to just sort of bear in mind that maybe you could just have an hour in the afternoon, even if it's the end of the day, that you kind of shut it for everyone else, but then it's kind of, an autism friendly, disabled friendly hour, that then there isn't so many people and there isn't so many queues, so that they've got the option to use it separately and with their siblings, because a lot of, when you've got a disabled family, you kind of do either or. So you do it separate.
Yeah.
Whereas it'd be quite nice to have the option to do it all together as a family, and they all be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, we got Sarah here, lost in that bottom left. There you are. Who I'm sure is taking a lot of note of this. As she will
It probably won't be Sarah, it'll probably be me in any case looking after that, but Sarah can certainly talk to you about the autism friendly and Alzheimer's friendly sessions that we do at the Arts Centre, and also what we do down at the Zone with the sensory room that we have down there, really for exactly what Vicky was describing, so that we want families to come entirely, rather than have to do some military operation of one parent go one way and one parent go the other way. In terms of idea of a kind of quiet hour towards the end, certainly it should be possible to make sure if any rides have flashing lights or loud noises or the music's loud, they can all be either turned off or turned down. It's difficult to actually close something because there's no fence around it in the first place. But I think you're right that when things are beginning to just sort of either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, when things are calming down naturally, then if we've actually advertised the fact that there's going to be a quiet session, then that'll really encourage people to come. I very much agree with what Councillor Mason was saying, and you'll all know this as people who are disabled or parents of disabled people. There is a military operation, and you have to know that all the ducks are in a row. So I think us making sure that we tell people what arrangements we've done, rather than us making arrangements, patting ourselves on the back and not telling anyone we've done it, I think in itself is an important step.
Brilliant. Thank you for hearing us today, and I'm going to log off and have my dinner now. So I'll catch you all soon. See you soon, Vicky and Paula. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is a public forum. Is there anybody else? I've lost. I know Brian's going to talk about the thing which I'm going to bring forward on the agenda.
We don't have anybody else apart from Brian.
That's fine. Okay. I'd like to bring forward item 9A, which is the Haverland District Local History Group. So Brian doesn't have to sit through the rest of the meeting. This basically it's a grant application for £1,533.20, which is to cover effectively the rent from when they were allowed back into the building fully up until the end of the financial year. Councillor Crean has obviously mentioned it. Did you want to say anything, Brian?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, thank
Yeah,
you
of course.
for allowing me to come this evening to have a chat. If I can, I know you've got a very full agenda, so if you can just bear with me just for a couple of minutes so I can let you know the state of the local history group at the present time. We have now set up a board of trustees, which will become clear in a second. I was asked to become a trustee at the last AGM, and for my sins, I also agreed to become secretary of the local history group, and most of you, if not all of you, will recognise me as being the chairman of the family history group, which is a completely different group, although we do work closely together. The reason why we set up a board of trustees is because you may be aware that prior to the pandemic, there was an opportunity for the local history group to join forces and discuss with Christopher Gerting about making available his private collection to the public, and also with the possibility of having a museum for Haverhill. But in order to do that, we had to change our charitable organizer status, and we had several choices. We could become a charitable company, a company limited by guarantee, or a community interest company, but we were advised to become a charitable incorporated organization. Now this gave us several benefits. Benefit of incorporation without many of the burdens imposed on by company law, for a start. And it's designed specifically for charities. Avoids double registration for both charities and companies' house, but more than anything else, debts or obligations belong to the organisation rather than individuals running it as they are at the present time. So we're in the process of changing to a CIO. There's a few hiccups on the way, but we hope we'll get that sorted out within the next few months. But in order to do that, we had to set up a new board of trustees. And as you heard earlier, Aaron, Councillor Lucarini is our chairman. We also have Paula Fox on the board of trustees, who's on the call tonight, and three more. We're always on the lookout for more people to act as trustees. Now, having said that, things have moved on since the pandemic, and I think the idea of looking to having a museum at Chauncey Mills is a fair way off now. But having said that, if we get our act together and in order, whether it's a year's time, 5 years' time, or 10 years' time, whoever is running the local history group, at least the things will be in place for them to move forward. Now, as far as tonight's concerned, it's really basically we would request a grant from yourselves, which we appreciate that we've received for several years now, and really do appreciate that. And I've communicated with the town clerk. I think the amount we've asked for really is to just cover the rent for the history room in the Arts Centre since we resumed in 2021, I should say. Whereas normally we'd ask for a little bit extra for running operational cost. We're really asking just to cover the rent on this occasion.
Thank you, Brian.
Is there any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Any time? Councillor Fox. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say anything, Paula, before I get to Margaret? No. Councillor Marks.
Yeah, just it's probably not. We probably can't do it now, but I'm just wondering why they didn't ask for a little extra to run the group. It's so important for Haverhill, and it's so important for the history here. And you know, we value what you do. I just wondered why you didn't ask this time, and if there was a cost to the group for this incorporation to go into this charitable status. You know, has that actually cost you money to do that? But I don't know whether Colin can answer whether we can elect to give them a little bit more than they've asked for, because obviously we do value their service and it is important to keep them going.
Well, as far as moving to a charitable organisation, incorporated organisation, we did get a grant for a person to come and talk to the group and actually act on our behalf to move things forward. So helping us with the paperwork, etc. So we're not short of money as far as that's concerned. We had a grant to do that, as far as I'm aware. As far as asking for more money, we appreciate that we have asked for quite a bit in the past, and we don't want to abuse the system, to be fair.
Yeah. And obviously next month is another financial year as well. So, Councillor Roach.
Yeah, I think I'll just go straight ahead and say I propose that we make the grant.
Okay. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Tony Brown, is that seconded? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely second there. Just one little thing. I think, or I seem to remember from a few years ago, the Haverhill History Group were going to compile a list of non-listed heritage assets. Do you know how that's progressing? I don't suppose you know. It's sort of
by coincidence,
the book was published.
I spoke to Brian earlier on about it.
Oh, right, okay.
The list that's supposed to be going to West Suffolk Council. You're talking
That's
about.
it, yeah.
It's gone. Yeah. It was Patrick wrote a book with it all in. It was printed. We funded the printing of it, and we have a copy in the office, and we sent a copy to the planning department, and it showed the list of the buildings that the local history group selected. I think Councillor Crooks had also looked through the list before the book was published, so that work was completed a year and a half ago.
I can remember the book. I didn't realise that was the actual, comprehensive list of all the buildings.
Well, I think there'd been some debate over whether it was comprehensive, but obviously that's when it comes to choosing what people consider as notable historic buildings that are not listed, it's always going to be in the eye of the beholder. And the council asked the local history group to be the beholder.
Yeah, the problem is the list still hasn't been updated at West Suffolk.
That was never going to happen. That we know that they're going to resist that, but they have a copy of it.
Okay, well, unfortunately, 27 Clements Lane's not on it, unfortunately, but Old Clements Lane rather.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry.
Yes.
All I can say, Mr. Chairman, is that was before my time, obviously.
No, it's fine.
I will bring it in front of the committee, and perhaps we can resurrect that and have a look at that for you.
Brilliant. Yeah.
If I can just say quickly, Brian, whilst it's on this kind of we're talking about it, the question of whether the list that was compiled into a book was as comprehensive as, if you're always going to find the case that people are going to have different opinions, but it was the decision was taken about how many pages the book was going to have. And that was the deciding factor in terms of how many properties made the list. But it's perfectly possible that another person might have decided to have less pages or more pages. So it could be that your new committee with new people on board might think there's scope for a companion volume with another set of buildings that didn't make the cut first time around.
Yeah, can I just make it clear? I'm a little bit at a loss why there's a book when you ask for a list.
It was a project.
Surely we don't need to produce another book just to increase the list. I wouldn't have thought that
that's true.
The list of buildings should be restricted because of the size of the book, for instance.
As you say, you weren't there at the time, and that was the decision of the committee. And the book's great, but that was a project they were interested in doing, and it kind of matched up. But I do agree with you. If it's a matter of simply compiling a longer list, it doesn't actually have to be a book.
Now, the existing list is just 2 A4 pages, right?
Okay, well, I'll take that back.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. You and I spoke about it this morning by strange coincidence as well. Okay, we've had a proposer from Councillor Roach. He is back again, and seconded by Councillor Brown. Can I have a show of hands, please? All those in favour? There you go. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. Again, Brian, if you're interested in staying, or it's up to you, but I'll leave it up to you. Thank you.
No, I think I'll go, but thank you very much, everybody, for your support.
All right.
It's
Well, I'll
much
see you
appreciated.
Thursday. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Right. So going back to the reports, let's go back to 8A as we've got Sarah here. Sorry to keep you waiting, Sarah.
Okay.
You've all got the report that Colin sent out a few days ago. We don't intend going through every line by line, obviously, because we'll be here all night. Right. Did you want to say anything first, Sarah? Lost you.
Well, I was mainly here to talk about the last item on the report, but I can answer any questions about anything else that comes up.
Right. One sec. Oh,
Chair,
the modern
Chair,
art exhibition. So you talked about.
just before you do the modern art exhibition for Sarah, you may want to take under this a discussion about the work we were doing on looking at costs of the events, etc. You see the sales stuff at the top. You'll recall from the previous meeting we were discussing the ability of the council to calculate out how much individual events actually cost.
Yes, and I assume that's you were starting that from the beginning of the year, beginning of the calendar year, rather.
Well, the beginning of when we were actually doing some things. So I can share with you some of the numbers for February.
Fine. Okay.
But I think what it'll do is, and I think it's really important that there's a health warning on this, is that what it does demonstrate is that it's extremely complicated. I thought it's not as straightforward as I thought it would be. Even after the steps we've taken, it still requires a huge amount of analysis and drilling down to try and get some figures that are anywhere near accurate. And then I think there's a question about how much it actually tells us, because it's fairly kind of complicated. But let me share the screen and I'll talk you through what we've got. So basically, this is an analysis from individual events. So we have the date, the events, we have the number of tickets sold, the income generated, where obviously there was a charge in the first place, and some of the information we are still trying to get together, because drilling down is not always so easy. Then the bar income. And these are net figures, by the way, because we've actually had to run the VAT, the different rates of VAT through to take that all out. Any additional income that might have been generated in terms of meals or any merchandise, etc. Then the cost of staffing, the actual cost of the act or film, and I have redacted, because this is a public meeting, I've redacted what we paid individual people because it's not fair to publish that. The expenditure in the bar, we're working at on the basis that 50% of what we take on the bar is actually the cost of the product we sell. And then if there's any other additional expenditure, we also include that. And then you've got some totals and then the balance. And I've just done a little bit in terms of what that means in terms of where it's a negative figure, where as you can see, it's almost invariably a negative figure. That's not a surprise. We know that it costs hundreds of thousands of pounds to run the Arts Centre. All we're doing is drilling down. Instead of looking at a forest, we're looking at individual trees. And of course, we're going to see where those hundreds of thousands of pounds disappear. And it's really hard to judge how some things will go. So some NT Live stuff, we don't have the information because National Theatre are a bit sporadic in billing us, so we don't know some of the outcomes. But where we have got some information, we've put that in. To be honest, I don't really know what this tells us, because we're not going to react to say, oh well, we won't have that sort of genre again, because the whole point is that we provide a broad range of things to provide entertainment, but also more challenging entertainment, some films or events that a lot of people are interested in, others not a lot of people are interested in. But yeah, so we end up with these numbers. And all I would say is be very, very wary about attempting to read anything in or finding any action that can be taken from these figures. I see Councillor Mason has his hand up.
Yeah, if I may, Councillor Mason, just bring my 2 pennies worth in. I think some of the action that may be considered is over the films, obviously. Not the fact that you're showing the film in the first place, whatever literary piece it was, for example, no idea what that was, is the fact we took £2.31 at the bar. We obviously had someone serving behind the bar. And, when you've only got 6 tickets sold, I would actually argue, don't even open the bar. That's my personal view, but I shall go on to Councillor Mason first of all.
Just if I can react to that, because it might be useful. I don't know what Councillor Mason's going to ask, but it's probably useful to respond to that. Is that we try and double up on staffing, so you wouldn't necessarily save any money if this is simply a matter that the projectionist is manning the bar and then nipping back upstairs to show the film. There isn't actually any cost to opening the bar in the first place.
No,
sorry, Councillor Mason.
Right, but yeah, Councillor Mason, then Councillor Marks.
Yeah, I think I run the risk of being a little bit controversial. Colin, you mentioned that, of course, the Haverhill Arts Centre has a wonderful track record of offering a very broad and balanced programme of activities. We have spoken about the particularly challenging environment, financial environment that we face ourselves in. And I just wonder whether it's prudent sometimes it's very difficult to know what film is going to be a success and what isn't. But the minus £613.35, whether in the current environment we try and maybe minimise our exposure to more niche events that are running at a significant loss. As I say, I know it's controversial and I know it's contrary to what the Haverhill Arts Centre aims to do, but I'm just trying to point out the difficult budgetary situation that we find ourselves in.
Okay. Councillor Marks?
Yeah, I really like this. I'm quite an analytical person and I like to see this. And I actually think it's incredibly useful to be able to say, that at the Swinging Blue Jeans, you made a profit, and where you can see significant losses. And those things, therefore, I think I'm in line with really what Joe's saying, Councillor Mason is saying, is that we limit those that we've made significant losses on. We don't, there's quite a lot of things here where we've made a minimal loss. The Comedy Club, we've put it on, it's almost run at a break even. People love the Comedy Club. I do get asked quite a lot about that. And in fact, I was only asked this week, again, if we're going to have any more because other people want to go. So I think we could do a better balance. I'm not suggesting we cancel anything. I'm not suggesting, but I think we could have a better balance where those things that are obviously more popular, like the dance type people and those things that make the least losses. And I think we have a duty to do that for our public. We need to be showing that we are responsible with the money that we have without completely taking away the enjoyment of the niche markets. But I think this is really valuable. I thank you for doing it because I can imagine it can be complex. And, the detail is fantastic, Colin. So thank you very much for that. But I do think it's a valuable piece of information.
Yeah, I'd agree. Things like open mic night, which is a fantastic thing. Councillor Dave Smith.
I'd say probably the opposite view to that. I don't see these as niche events. The fact is, if you've got a musician, you've got to pay a musician. They put a lot of effort into what they do. It's not just about what they're doing on the night. It's all the time they spent practicing, traveling, or whatever. So obviously, it's going to cost more money to have live acts. If we cut back on the live acts, where else are we going to go to see live music? And I don't just mean down the pub where you know, you've got some local band playing, which is very good. But, you know, if you want a professional act to come to the town, you've got to pay the going rate. And it's pretty easy to work out how much these are costing from the blackout. You've got simple maths in your head. So I don't think that's excessive, you know, and yeah, sometimes we have to sort of subsidise these more than we would somewhere, something that doesn't cost quite as much. But that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, the only thing I would say to that, perhaps, is taking the example just being mentioned, you know, Chris Wood, folk guitarist, is, you know, as far as I'm aware, none of these acts were booked by anybody, you know, like Sarah or anything like that. Is the fact is that perhaps in a year's time there'd be somebody else in that slot who, you know, 27 tickets is not a great deal. Yeah, okay, you know, that reflects in the bar income as well, of course, because you've only got 27 people there. But equally, it's obviously you know, £500 odd of staff costs, which presumably means you know, perhaps a lot of technical work required for that. I don't know whether there is or not. I have no idea, but I'm just saying that. You know, I don't know. But it's where you can try and save obvious costs. You know, like I was saying about the 6 people going to a film, is don't have a problem with the film, but if we are dedicating, and Colin obviously may say differently, as he rightly has said, is it could be that we may save one person's wages that night and use them for something else somewhere else, so it doesn't reflect on that. But that's another matter. Yeah, if I could just sort of you know, in support of musicians again, there's an old saying that a guitarist is somebody who spends £1,000 on a guitar to travel 100 miles to earn £10. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I mean, obviously, the thing is that all of this information, it's almost a poison chalice knowing it, and I appreciate that what Councillor Marks has said, that it's interesting to know it, but it's quite what you do with the information afterwards. A Leopoldstadt, an NT Live thing, turned a profit. I mean, and then there's some Belle, the children's film during the half term, made a small loss. If you would ask anyone on the street which round you think it would be, people would have thought it was the other way around. So it's difficult, I guess, whenever you're programming stuff, to know which is going to be successful and what isn't going to be successful. And we know to a certain extent that overall it's not going to add up. And so making sure there's a varied program, and I don't think anyone's speaking out against a varied program, is really important. But I think what it is useful, and I think hopefully Councillor Mason and Councillor Marks would see this, is we can program with a bit more of an eye on what we're doing, and perhaps a little thought between yin and yang. And it does what isn't in here because it happened in March was the Big Ten event that Paul Thurman put on. That the income from that, by the looks of things, we haven't finished collating all the figures, wipes everything else on this page out, completely reverses the situation. So the balance of what we do, I think, may well be something we want to look at. But at least if we put in a whole load of things that are going to lose a lot of money, then we'll be doing it because we know we're doing it, as opposed to having no idea that that's what we're doing.
And I think if you'd included, what's his name, Andre Roux, I don't know how you pronounced it, that would have probably wiped that out, because often there's, you know, 200 backsides on seats watching an NT Live, either and sometimes recorded program, but for very little in terms of actually paying out how much we pay to National Theatre. So they're very, yeah. I mean, it varies, of course. Councillor Roach.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is just a useful tool, isn't it? So all information, there's no bad information, it's just information. So it just will, if we have this as an ongoing tool, it will allow us to form an opinion going forward. I don't think we can go back and analyse what's gone before. but certainly it will point us in directions when we're looking at what works and what doesn't. So it's a good tool. It's obviously not the be all and end all, and it's also for us to make a decision that if we have events that make a good profit and wipe this deficit out, then is that the right thing to have effectively a neutral balance by having a broad range of material? So I think it's just having that information to make those decisions.
Yeah, and one thing I have noticed, Colin, obviously you're down to pennies, is I'd much rather spend, I don't know, maybe less time worrying about the accuracy of the figures rather than just having a ballpark figure more than anything. You're not going to worry about whether the comedy club made a 7p loss or whatever it was, £6 loss rather.
But that's a spreadsheet. It's just busy kicking out the numbers.
I know, but I'm just thinking about whether it's going to be. It's maybe too much detail, perhaps in the background. I'm talking about, not on the front page here. Not on here. But thank you for doing that. No, that's really really handy, because that gives me, even with those, I don't know, maybe 12 is it or something like that. Gives me a lot more information about what's going on, and certainly the films is probably showing what I probably already knew about films. Anyway.
I think I don't think there's any huge surprises here. I think we may want to just have a discussion in terms of the staffing to make sure that we are not overstaffing any events, because that is within our control. But at the end of the day, it's absolutely hugely vital, and one of the things that the ACTs often comment very positively on is the quality of tech support. And of course, at the end of the day, it's quite limited in terms of those. We have to, the staff who agree to work these shifts are the lifeblood of the Arts Centre. We'll have that discussion to see whether there's anything we can do to, if there is any way we can reduce it, because quite often it is the staffing costs that make the difference between an event breaking even or not breaking even, but we can't not staff the events.
Yeah. Is your legacy hand, Councillor Roach? Yeah, okay, thank you. And before we get on to your one, Sarah, if you don't mind, I just want to quickly run down, not in details, just go through the headings rather than marketing. Obviously, you and I have spoken about the website, particularly the Arts Centre website, how we, maybe we might need to pay out some money for a service contract, maybe a support contract. And if anyone, Lisa obviously has joined. I don't know, hopefully most of you have met Lisa now. And obviously the duty manager with Tim Lawless. I don't know if any of you know Tim. I think some of you know Tim. On the technical thing, Colin, I was a little bit but then when they talked about the lifespan of the server, what it doesn't say there, this is actually the digital cinema.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, this is the Dolby piece of equipment that is part of the digital cinema setup. If any of you have been up to the projection room office, it's an enormous piece of kit, and it's ridiculously expensive. And the company that maintain it have about a year and a half ago announced that they were withdrawing support in terms of as an obsolete product, and also leaving the market. So they did at the time say, we can offer you a good deal on another one of these things that we're not going to support and we're leaving the market. And we couldn't really see that's a particularly useful deal. In any case, it was just about, we were coming into the time of the pandemic, so it wasn't really a lot of point pursuing it. But the point is that if that server breaks, and I'm clutching a large lump of wood right now, then we don't have to worry about losing a lot of money on showing films anymore, because we won't be able to show any films. So we're talking thousands and thousands of pounds. I think by the time we finish, I should imagine we'll probably have spent 10 grand. The discussion that Sarah, myself and Gary have had is that we've asked Gary, because of his experience at the circus and what he knows about doing cinema and stuff like that, is to work with the tech team to look into what other people are using, so that we can neatly step from the equipment we're using at the moment to a new piece of kit at a moment of our choosing, and not because the machine we've got at the moment breaks and isn't able to be repaired. So we are looking into that. But, that kind of ask that we change it is well over 18 months old now. So we've had another 18 months worth out of the equipment. There's only a certain amount of time we can ride our luck. So we do need to have plan B in place, ready to go.
Yeah, I remember tech team talking to me you're right, about probably start of COVID, wasn't it? Something like maybe a bit later than that. Because of course they'd had the hard drive failed 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. Which meant it was out of action for a little while as well. That was an easy fix, obviously, put a new hard drive in, but this one is a bit more involved. I mean, that kit was, I think, a hell of a lot more than 10 grand, wasn't it, when it was bought?
Oh, I think the whole kit, I think the particular bit was 5,000, but I think the entire thing was close on 50 grand. Obviously, we're talking about at the beginning is digital cinema anyway, and obviously costs fall dramatically. But one of the questions I've asked Gary to ascertain is whether or not whether we can replace this one particular bit and it's all industry standard, or whether actually, as always seems to be the way of things, is that you pull out one bit and then it turns out, oh, well, actually, the rest of that kit only works with that bit. So whilst we said that bit needs replacing, actually that means everything else needs replacing as well. So we do have a major fund which is specifically there for the really, really big ticket items, but we're talking really more like their handling system costing hundreds of thousands of pounds. But we'll report back to you once we know what's possible. Replacing the digital projector, every single cinema in the UK has a digital projector, so it's not as if we're not setting out up the Amazon on this. This should be a bread and butter question that a supplier should be able to answer very easily.
Yeah, definitely. I've had great experiences of fixing gyro compasses and finding you replace the sphere and something else goes wrong. Not a good example of that, but anyway. LED light installation, that's brilliant. And just to obviously it's going to come before council. We're looking at CCTV for the Arts Centre as well. Gas, energy. My only thought on the energy, obviously we use ecotricity already, is are we going to get all kinds of odds and sods extra charges from ecotricity for our gas supply? Do you know, Colin, until we actually see the first bill?
Well, I think Gary has had the advantage of having a much better understanding of the modus operandi of ecotricity, who basically, rather than wrap a lot of charges up into a single figure, which may be more convenient, kind of slightly trickled in all sorts of charges. But we've got proper quotes from this company, so we will hold them by those quotes as best we can. It's worth saying that commercial and public bodies are not covered by the off-gen cap in any case.
No. That's great. It was just the odd things like, meter maintenance or whatever it was called and stuff like that. Okay, programming and other projects. Anyone's got any questions on that? We'll move quickly on to Sarah, modern art exhibition.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I have got a really exciting potential project to tell you about. So it would be a modern art exhibition held in Haverhill. It came about because I went to meet Ian Clark at the Apex, and we were just shooting the breeze. And then at the end of the conversation, he said, "Oh yeah, something else we've got coming up is this modern art exhibition, Moments Too." It was really great. And I said, "Oh, can't we have it in Haverhill?" And he said, "Yes, maybe you can." Because they wanted a really big space to house some of the bigger pieces, and I immediately thought of Gertines. So I've spoken to Damien at Gertines, and he is potentially interested in the possibility. And the idea is that this would be a modern art trail split between going around West Suffolk and split between Bury St Edmunds, Moyses Hall, the Newmarket National Racing Museum, and we'd have artists of the calibre of Banksy, Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin. Those are the sort of the three big ticket people, and then there's others which you might not have heard of, but people in the modern art crowd will be able to identify them immediately, and they're Rachel List, Pure Evil, the Connor Brothers, My Dog Size. So when I went to see Damien, we looked at the back extension, and it's a really brilliant space. And when I showed the gallery owner and the people at West Suffolk and Moyses Hall and the Newmarket Racing Museum, they were really overawed by it because it's a really appropriate setting for modern art. It's like an old industrial unit. It's in the centre of town. So they're really enthused by it all, and West Suffolk are particularly keen to give Haverhill some of the prestige pieces because they want to show that they're doing good and cultural work in Haverhill. So we wouldn't be ending up with the dregs. We'd be, if this goes ahead, getting some of the big and the well-known pieces. There are various income streams which they look quite promising. So, for example, at the First Moments exhibition in Bury last year, they had 25,000 visitors, and those visitors paid between £6 and £4 a ticket. This year, they're thinking that the prices go up because they thought the market could take it, and so it will be £8 and £5 a ticket. There would obviously be associated other events, so workshops for children, which we could run for schools or dementia groups or things like that. And then they also held lectures and sort of private view events where some of the artists come down and talk to the crowds who did actually come from all over, from quite a long way away to attend these events because it's an event in the art calendar. So there were those at £25 each. There's merchandise. So the gallery owner produces a whole load of merchandise, and in the Moyses Hall exhibition they sold £75,000 worth of merchandise, which is pretty impressive. And they were so pleased with that, then they gave a donation to a local charity called Epic Dads. There's also sponsorship, so the gallery owner would seek sponsorship and share that 50-50, and would also get a percentage of any sales that went through. So obviously Damien Howard's building is in a little bit of a shaky state. But I've done a little bit of research, and we could get potentially some national lottery project grants up to 100,000 K, and that would cover things like insurance, a few capital costs, things like that. I forgot to mention that there would be a freezer ticket. So you'd buy a ticket for the Newmarket and Bury, and that would give you Haverhill as well. And that there will be a lot of promotion around it. So they're talking about getting ITV on board and using Stagecoach. And it just created a big buzz around the whole of West Suffolk last year. And it would be a really great opportunity for Haverhill to get in on the act and possibly generate some income and make Haverhill a location and a place to come and enjoy art and be a cultural place, not a place of takeaways and betting shops, which is what everyone always goes on about. And that is, in a nutshell, the project.
Thank you, Sarah. Very interesting. Personally, not a great fan of Banksy or anyone like that, but that's me, of course. But yeah, I think anything, as long as, dare I say, as long as West Suffolk don't treat it as some sort of bribe for us, you know, and not doing other things, but that's another matter. But I think that's good. I mean, if we, you know, personally, I would grab anything we can. Are we talking about the Northern Lights building at Gertines?
I don't think it was the Northern Lights because it didn't have the zigzaggy roof.
No, okay. No, okay. That's the only one I was asking about. Yeah, I think I know the one you were talking about then. Yeah.
The back extension or the new extension.
Yeah, on the back, right on the far back. Yeah. Any comments from anybody at all, please, on that one? Hello, Tony, Councillor Brown. You're muted.
Yeah, just say well done, Sarah. That was a opportune meeting and great things come out of it. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Is there anything else on Sarah's part? Because obviously, sorry, was that you, Dave?
Yeah, I'll just say it's be a great thing to, you know, something different to what we normally have. And yeah, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but you know, there are a lot of Philistines out there, let's face it.
Thanks. No, I'm sure close up I might appreciate it.
Banksy is like, I'd say he's the most famous living artist in England today, and Damien Hirst is probably a close second. So if anyone is going to draw crowds into Haverhill, it will be Banksy.
Most definitely. Especially if he does some painting on certain walls that we can preserve, be great.
Well, that's a sort of a potential side benefit that we could hope for, because when Moments 1 happened in Moyses Hall, quickly and on the heels of that, there was the staycation thing that Banksy did all around Suffolk, and we could hope that Banksy would come into Haverhill perhaps and do us our own little bespoke piece of artwork.
Would it be a bit like Where's Wally? We've got to try and find where Banksy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate that. No, it's good stuff. Well done. Thank you for that, Sarah. Thanks for all the other stuff you've done as well. I appreciate your up to your armpits, if that's the right term to use. And also Ogna as well, working with you. Anybody else on Sarah's bit? Because I guess Sarah probably would like to go. No, thank you, Sarah. Again, it's up to you. Obviously, usual things today if you want.
I need my tea.
No, great. Yeah, thank you. Same here.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And can I just say, by the way, just as I know councillors will join me in thanking Sarah for holding the fort for the last couple of months and getting everything ready before that, so that you know the art centre is in safe hands at the moment. It is appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Right, should we move on to 8 Bravo, which is the youth skills report, which is Karen and Dan and Catherine's. I hope you've all read that because there's a lot in it. As once again, I'd personally like to thank them for all the work they do up the zone and everywhere else they're doing stuff. They always seem to be everywhere and getting involved in all kinds of things. So is there any questions on your skills at all? No. Okay, moving on to Sandra and Sue's side of things and all the team up at the zone and the youth work. Charlie. Again, lots of things happening up there. I've been up there regularly doing things with food systems and whatever else. And Councillor Dave Smith.
I just leading on from the presentation we had earlier. I mean, I think there's scope here to have some time set aside for disabled or autistic children. But other than that, it seems to be picking up now, so that's good.
Well, Colin did mention the sensory room, obviously, and there is autistic. There is already autistic, and I say autistic loosely. Colin?
Yeah, so we do that sort of thing already. There's a couple of groups that come in and use the sessions, because obviously it's quite quiet in the mornings, and so we book groups in, and we also have the Churchill School comes down occasionally, but councillors will recall them contributing towards the sensory room, which is basically the Santa's Grotto in December, but a sensory room the rest of the time. And it's kind of done on a booking basis, but it enables parents to come down as a whole family, as I was describing earlier. So yeah, absolutely, Councillor Smith. I think wherever the opportunity is that we can do more of that sort of thing, and particularly when it's quieter, it's not such a comfortable place for people who are sensitive to noise when there are a huge number of little kids running around. I think probably all of us get a bit sensitive to that sort of thing, to be perfectly honest. But we do try and use the quiet time as best we can, and I'll work with various groups. There are parents who come down and have some educational opportunities to help their employability whilst their kids are playing. We're talking only, Tuesday, only yesterday, about the potential for some kind of some yoga type stuff to be going on again, while some of the younger people, their charges are busy amusing themselves in the ball pit or in the play area. So yeah, all sorts of different groups who would otherwise struggle to use the zone other times. We do make arrangements.
Yeah, and I think, well, from what I've seen, certainly a weekend, the zone is, whether it's making a profit or not, on individual days, but there's a lot of people, a lot of young people there.
Yeah, we missed a trick, and I think probably Councillor Brown is probably going to point out we missed a trick, and that's my fault. I should have checked that they were going to open every day over half term. I will have that conversation to make sure that they schedule to open every day over Easter.
Should there be, and I don't want to get into Tony's thing, I did wonder whether we're missing a trick by not opening at 9 o'clock in the morning to capture people who've dropped their kids off at school. And the younger people may want to,
It's always difficult, and obviously the every time when you open, that's not when the staff have just arrived. It's always a juggling act. If we were open 24 hours a day, we wouldn't miss any customers at all. So it's trying to work out what's profitable. But I think without doubt, the holidays, we should have been open 7 days a week, basically, and I didn't pick up on the fact that wasn't going to happen, because we have been avoiding it because we simply haven't been busy enough, and using the booking system meant that we can condense the bookings down a bit. But we do want to get to the point, and I've had the conversation with Sandra, that they must allow walk-ups as well, and we don't need the booking system because that side of COVID is behind us. But we need to increase the marketing. And I had a discussion with Sarah earlier today about support for the zone in terms of marketing, etc., to make sure that we're really pushing that. And councillors will remember that you approved in the budget an additional person to boost the marketing of the zone, so that both the zone and the arts centre, we're making sure that everybody on the new estates, everybody around Haverhill, is finding out what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Councillor Brown, did you want to add anything there, I guess?
Yeah, no, thanks for picking up on what I said earlier in the email, Colin. So that's great. It's just a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's been picked up on. So I'm more than happy with that. Just the other thing is, as you go up, Boundary Road, to the zone, just be nice just to have something. Wow, I don't know, it all looking nice and the fence painted, etc. It's all.
We lost the banner, didn't we, Colin?
There was a new banner ordered. I've got to catch up with Sandra because I'm sorry. We organised a new banner, and I think it went up, but I think it went up just before the storms hit. And I don't know whether it was taken down or lost.
No,
it was taken down.
Yeah, but it hasn't been put back up.
No, it hasn't been put back up. And one of the things Sarah and I have been discussing is, in terms of the whole marketing thing, is the image of the zone. And what might appeal to younger people, and what we will do is bring forward, probably to this committee, I should imagine, some proposals to really make the place stand out. Because I feel the same when I turn up to Councillor Brown is absolutely right. You turn to Boundary Road, that might as well be the old plumbing warehouse it was once upon a time, because you wouldn't have a clue what it's supposed to be. So I'll find out what they're doing about getting that sign back up. I think tomorrow Kevin is putting the new bin and bench in at the pump track with councillor from Withersfield, Tony. My mind's just gone blank. No, the chair of
Terry.
Terry.
Rich.
Yeah. So he's doing that, and then I'm catching up with him at some point tomorrow about the kiosk, and I'll ask him when he's going to get that banner back up again.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank
you.
Thanks. Right, item 8 Delta, which is have you to follow. We've not had a report on have you. I know we got item 11.
No, that kind of fell between two swords. So I'm discussing with Michelle in terms of her report, about the report that she had submitted as a quarterly report for the community chest. But unfortunately, of course, she doesn't work every single day. Because I think I went back to her and said, wasn't that the report that we got last time? And then it kind of got lost between two stones after that, so apologies.
All right, so we'll skip that one, that's fine. Right, item 9 Bravo, Hayville Silver Band would like £200 for a new printer and to buy some music, apparently. You've seen the paperwork. Any comments at all? Any proposers?
Yeah, I'll propose it, John.
Okay, so I think on Councillor Brown first, sorry.
I'll second then.
Was that you proposing, Tone?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, right. So we've got a proposer, a seconder. Then any other? Unless there's any other comments, no. Then can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, thank you very much. I can't see you, Councillor Marks. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but just let you know. That's fine. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Report from the Silver Band also. I've lost it again. Where they spoke about the trombone they bought, and also the fact they'd had a nurse or something. I didn't print it out, but yeah, good, nice to have a report from a grant recipient. Did anyone have any comments on the grant on the Silver Band? We all know they do a grand job. No. Okay. Thank you. Right, item 11 then, have you funding? I guess it's probably down to you, Colin, on this one. You're muted.
Sorry, apologies. So yes, so this is basically just in terms of the just go what I need to look at. So this is match funding. Very grateful to Councillor Mason for dipping into his county councillor pot. But just to make it kind of work, it needs match funding from us, not anything to do with the county council requesting it, but simply down to the fact that in terms of making it the right money to make a difference, we need to put another 1650 into the pot. We have it in the youth strategy activities reserve, so we can do it, but of course it needs councillors to sign off on us dipping into that reserve. So it's really just if councillors are happy for us to use the youth reserve towards this youth project.
Any comments from anybody at all?
No, well, yeah, I just say I personally support that. Do we need a proposer?
Yeah, we do.
Or...
Yeah, you do.
Okay, well, I'm happy to propose. Yeah.
Second is Councillor Dave Smith. Are you seconding? Just nod. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, any other comments from anybody? No. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Right. I lost Councillor. Did you? Were you voting then, Councillor Mason?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. My internet signal just dropped out.
I know you've already put your county council thing, but that's fine. It went through anyway. That's fine. Lovely. Okay. Item 12. Date of next meeting, Tuesday, the 10th of May. Blimey, time flies. Just note that. And finally, item 13 is closure at 2107.